Hello, welcome to Unbearable. The topic of this video, or most likely series of videos, it's going to be probably 2 or 3 parts, I would think, because I don't want to put too long format, out there. Is the it starts with this article I found in Cosmic Book News, which I think is pretty interesting. So let's get a look at it and let's add it to the screen. And basically, it's about the Viacom, Paramount, and CBS merger, and how did this potentially solve years of Star Trek being screwed up by the history of these companies and a couple of men involved with them. So let's take a little review of events. I'm going to call up a spreadsheet I made to give us some information to start with. Let's look at the article first. The very first thing is that we'll read through this article. Okay. So ViacomCBS, which just formed, and I'll get back to that later, is rebranded from Paramount Global, which reflects Paramount brand, and Paramount Plus as ViacomCBS is the parent company. Okay. So they'll be publicly known as Paramount Global, which will be face all of their media products, including Star Trek, Transformers, and whatnot, TV shows and all. Not a lot of big news in here other than some stuff about what's coming out, potentially a Star Trek 4 with J.J. Abrams. I'm not going to talk about the current state of Trek in this video, just kind of how it got there. If you want to read through this, all the links for anything I'm referencing to will be below in the text. Okay, so now let's get my spreadsheet up here. All right, and let's start with the Paramount timeline. Okay, so I admit I'm not an expert. I do have some notes I want to follow, so I'm not looking quite up at you guys. I prepare well for this one. Anyway, I admit I don't expect many to find this topic, what I'm going to go on about for a while, to be as interesting unless you're really a kind of diehard Star Trek fan. But that's why I've been following this topic on and off over the years. And not so much in fan media, because obviously before the web and some of the internet, we had the internet with some communications. Most of this you're going to find out either in fanzines or here's something, by the way, if you're curious and want to know what's really going on in many industries, read the financial sections of newspapers and finance papers like the Wall Street Journal and whatnot. Because a lot of times when they talk about mergers and stuff, they'll talk about what are being done with assets for those companies. That's relevant to Star Trek, obviously. So the main reason I'm approaching this is my love of Star Trek. I think it's fairly self-evident that what I'm going to talk about is the source of Star Trek's problems since about 1990. I'd say since 1993 for sure. We'll get into that. Okay, so let me give you some background first. Paramount Pictures, who is the company most known for, associated with Star Trek. Okay, they began in 1916 when Adolf Zuckler he hired a bunch of actors and actresses and directors and whatnot. I think there were 20 and 30 of them. I don't remember offhand, but it's more than 20, but not much more than that. He signed them not to do specific movies, but to his parent company, and then he would have them under contract to do various movies. In 1951, Paramount split into 2 companies, Paramount Pictures and United Paramount Theaters. Paramount Pictures obviously was the production company with the movies and the TV shows. United Paramount Theaters was the company they put all of their movie theaters into, that they were putting their products out in. The reason they split was because of a several-year-long antitrust lawsuit from the federal government. Obviously, the Fed used to be way more on top of and way more likely to prevent mergers and break companies up. Nowadays, in the last 20 years, we very rarely hear about them doing this, unfortunately. But back then, luckily, they did. So after the antitrust was settled, because of the antitrust settlement, certain restrictions were on Paramount Pictures and United Paramount Theaters. For example, United Paramount Theaters wasn't allowed to make their own movies and such for a while. And Paramount Pictures wasn't allowed to own the means of distributing movies or TV shows for a long time. Okay, So UPT, the United Paramount Theaters, they purchased the ABC television network in, I want to say, a few years after 1951. ABC was almost going bankrupt, had very low ratings. And eventually in 85, the entire conglomerate that the UPT eventually formed with ABC was sold off to Capital Cities. And as we know, Capital Cities was purchased by Disney, leading to Disney's mega company with ABC, ESPN, and everything else. Okay? So Paramount Studios after 85 was pretty much left to carry the Paramount name. You know? So let's go back to Paramount Studios. 1971, Paramount formed Cinema International Corporation with Universal Pictures to show their movies in theaters. They, how do I put it? This is basically, they were allowed after some adjustment and changing the industry to once again own theaters. Okay, Universal wanted to get into that business. They were a smaller company. Paramount used to be huge, and eventually I think MGM joined in into that group. Cinema International Corporation is CIC. You might have seen it as part of, I can't remember the name of it right now. We could always look that up another time. But in some some other movie theater chains, it became part of another movie theater chain. You see the CIC still in their logo, at least as of 4 or 5 years ago. Where are we here? That was 1985. Now in 1989, the longtime chairman and I believe owner of Paramount, which I spelt wrong here, so let me just we'll do a little live correction. That was right, Paramount. Martin Davis took over Paramount and divested it of all its non-film and non-television assets, things like tobacco farms and candy lines. Paramount had become pretty big and diverse. He wanted to focus on the entertainment stuff, producing television and movies and whatnot, because he foresaw the home video boom was going on, and he foresaw that there will be a lot of expansion into those sort of rights. And then Paramount's story sort of ends in a way with in 1993 when this dude, Summer Redstone, who's hidden behind my little spreadsheet right here, took over with his company National Amusements. He purchased Paramount Studios. When that happened, his National Amusement was previously obviously a sort of amusement park thing, but eventually it became the Redstone family's holding company for all their assets. So even though he purchased Paramount, he also began running the company, okay, as a media company. Now we'll hire Mr. Redstone's head again. We don't see him ever again. And then and that was the end of Paramount's independence. And now we're going to discuss the Viacom timeline so you understand some stuff what happened there. Okay. The original Viacom, was formed. We got it back. Yeah. Okay, here we go. The original Viacom was formed in 1952 when CBS television, their film sales division, they formed a film sales division, that was Viacom. They renamed it to CBS Films in 1958. 1970 became renamed as Viacom, and in 71 they sold it off, and Viacom became its own company. And then here's where Viacom becomes involved in, and Viacom became a very big company, purchasing a lot of assets over the years. But although they did maintain their relationship with CBS, and this is critical to note for the next point, because Summer Redstone had a master plan. Viacom was still the primary distribution point for CBS Television's visual assets. They owned many of the TV stations that CBS ran on. The network carried their programming, and also they distributed their films to places like Blockbuster or whatever. So in 1986, Viacom was purchased by Summer Redstone's National Amusements. We just discussed them purchasing Paramount, in 93, which is in the future. So Viacom becomes purchased and also run by Summer Redstone. His company was getting into this sort of media thing. And at the time, from the mid-'80s on, there were several big antitrust rulings which were basically either overturned by the Supreme Court or the FTC and whatnot said we're going to not enforce it because of the way the media market was exploding. So it wasn't uncommon for companies to try to merge assets with distribution. Like today, for example, every major network is part of it, has both their asset production and distribution lines. Disney obviously has all their studios. Then they have CBS, ESPN, ABC, NBC, which I believe is owned by GE. Not anymore. NBC is now owned by Comcast. Comcast has several movie studios and TV studios. They distribute through NBC and through their Comcast cable network and whatnot. And every other alignment like that has gone on. You know. So we're here. Okay. So 1993, Redstone buys Paramount, and Viacom and Paramount become merged into essentially Viacom bought Paramount is the technical way to think of it, because Viacom was the public company, even though they were all owned by a National Amusement. So now this is going to be a good point to break it up. I'm going to hit a pause here, and we will resume momentarily with part 2.